July 19th, after we'd been to sea, I wrote a letter home to my girlfriend, Barbara, and I said, I guess you're wondering whether I'll ever get back. I had no idea the ship would be so hard to get out of here. We should never have tried to make her sail out on her own power, but should have towed it immediately. It kills me to think of the money we are losing by not being at the fair. We were taking the boat to the fair, and we were showed as a museum at the fair in Seattle. And we've had 3 false starts already, which is one reason I have uh, failed to write. Thinking I would be headed home before you got my letter. We originally expected to leave 1 week after arriving, but there was a week's delay in getting the starboard engine going. When we did get it going, the unorthodox method used in its repair failed, and we were dead. In the meantime, we had people swarming holding the ship, fixing all of the other things that were necessary to put to sea with a full crew, such as ice boxes, freezers, bilge pumps, sanitary facilities, firefighting equipment, cheering gear, navigation equipment, electric power plants, fresh and saltwater pressure pumps, solvent, and cooking. It was really a big job, cooking equipment, living quarters, etc. With all of these things, we thought we could leave 2 weeks after arrival if the engine hadn't failed. We then attempted to repair the bad engine, but it continues to blow the special rubber gasket material that we had used. I told you most of the rest of that story. Um, well, we finally got the engine running, but we had one cylinder of the bad engine that kept blowing the gasket, and so we finally got it fixed enough that we called the insurance agent down, and we started the engine horn. We showed him that both engines were running, so he gave us insurance clearance to leave. So we left on September 15th. There's a picture of us the day we left. She was not a pretty ship at all. She was very awful mess. Terrible black smoke was coming out of the set. We had a lot of debts. I told you about having to hire an agent to pay all your bills while you're there. Well, we owed him a lot of money for the stuff that he had bought on his account. Just before we got things running well, and we were having trouble, he had a work engineer working for him, handling that big boat they have. And he said, we've got this guy who really knows what to do, knows all the people and where to get things. They said, well, we'll turn him over to you to help you get the boat going. And I said, great. So they kept working on the engine. One day, one of the workers came to us and said, the port captain that you brought aboard, is telling us to do things long. I think, and the crew thinks, that he is trying to sabotage the boat so it'll never leave. We had become a major economic force in Barbados. And And so anyway, he says, we think he's sabotaging the boat. So the um, head of the agency called him in, and he finally admitted, yes, that he was doing bad work and causing a delay. So the company said, well, we're responsible for all of this much of this delay also, since you got the valve fixed. And so we will forgive you all the money you owe us for revision and everything that we spent money on for the ship. So we have no debts at the shipyard. Now we have no debts for anything else that's uh, bought in Barbados. And we were about to leave there owing no money. And we didn't have much money. I closed out a personal bank account that I had, about $2,000. And the company sent us all the money they could raise. And we left Barbados with something around $2,000 in my pocket. And we got uh, out of the harbor and about 2 hours out to sea, headed home. And the gas blew, and that ended at that end. So we decided to put into Aruba and fix that engine, and that we would then never turn it on again except in emergencies. So we did that. We put into Aruba, fixed the engine, and finally took off for Panama. When we got to Panama, I had practically no money, but I put right into the dock, ordered a full load of fuel, and told the steward to go ashore and buy all the provisions they would need to get home to San Diego, to where we were expecting to meet them. So they did that. And the bill was about $1,500. So I called home and got the president of our company, Glenn Rowland. He happened to be working that day in the office. I think it was a Sunday. And I said, Glenn, we need $1,500. And he said, oh, we don't have it. And I said, well, if I don't pay for it, they're going to confiscate the boat. And this is a documented vessel. And if you ever leave a dock owing money, that debt stays with the vessel forever until paid. And I said, if we don't pay this bill, they're going to take the boat. So he said, all I've got is the payroll for the Atlanta boats. And I said, and he says, that's about it. And so you have to send that to me. Where's the boat? So he sent it. Well, then we had to get through the Panama Canal, and it's a very expensive fee to transit that canal. And however, I learned that private yachts can go through free. So I had heard that possibility before I went, and I took down a Newport Harbor Yacht Club Virgie with me. So we hoisted that up, and I went into the official and said we want to transit the canal. And we're Newport Beach, Newport Harbor Yacht Club. And I said, okay, you're free. He said, however, you're a two-engine vessel and only one engine running. You're going to have to be towed. So we were right behind a larger boat. And I had a chat with him. I said, our engine works fine. But they insist we be towed. So if you don't mind, we'll just throw a line through you and we'll look like we're being towed. And we did that, and we got through the canal that way. On the other side of the canal, we took a few days off and the guys went shopping. I bought a Chinese carved ivory chess set. One guy bought the steering wheel of every ship. And so everybody that had any money, and that was the guy that he'd come down for a ride home. And so anyway, loads of stuff on the boat. And I took all the money I could find in my pockets and anywhere else and gave it to the captain. I said, now when you get to Acapulco, you pull in there to get fuel, enough to get home. If you get full tanks, you'll have enough to get home. So I said, put in there, buy all the food you need, buy the fuel you need, and if there's any money left over, give it to the crew to go show the first payment they've ever had, and let them have some fun. So he did that. Well, when they left the next day, they got into a Mexican hurricane called the Chubasco. And they ended up going 2 or 3 days fighting that storm, going around in circles sometimes, keep headed into the sun. And they burn a lot of fuel. So storm died down and they were going along, and the captain decided they did not have enough fuel to make San Diego. So he got on the radio and called for, does anybody know where I can buy fuel? And the fishing vessel answered yes. There's a little island called Cedros Island, and they sell fuel. So the captain headed into that. They had a little wooden dock and put the bow right up into the dock and tie up. And they ran out $100 out from 55-gallon drums with a hand pump on it to get us fuel. So then the captain called the crew together, and he said, I don't have any money. I've given it to all you guys to have fun in Acapulco. You got to dig deep in your jeans and see if you have any money. And I'll use that money to buy the fuel. So anyway, they came up with some money. And later, I asked the guy that had lent us the 5,000 and come down. I asked him if he had put in some money, because he always had money to his credit. And he always had money. And he says, no, I was mad at the captain and I didn't give him any money. And so anyway, they got as much fuel as they could. Now, I'm now in San Diego with TV crews and newspapers, and a lot of people are waiting for the boat to come in. And I talked to them on the radio and I said, why aren't you here? They said, well, we're running low on fuel again, and we're mixing lubricating oil into the fuel to stretch it. And we don't run out of lubricating oil. Heck, it doesn't work. But I said, well, why don't you start up the other engine? You're late. Let's start. This is that emergency we're waiting for. Start up that other engine and get in here quick.